and welcome to The Right Side. The Right Side is a news talk show produced by the Taunton Republican City Committee. We strive to present local, state, and national issues that impact our community, and we welcome all points of view to foster greater understanding and awareness. We want to make it clear that the views and opinions expressed on The Right Side do not reflect the view of Taunton Cable Media Access. And now, with great pleasure, we welcome you to The Right Side for a discussion of the issues of the day.
Welcome to The Right Side. We're here today with two guests, Patricia St. Aubin and Mark Townsend. We have a lot of good things in store for you today. First, we'd like to do a little bit of an introduction and then talk about what day it is today and how important this day is in our history. We're going to start with you, Patricia.
Sure.
Can you tell us a little bit about, first of all, where you were raised and what interested you to get into politics and approximately what you've done in politics in the past few years?
Okay. My name is Patricia St. Aubin, and I happen to have grown up in South Dartmouth, not far from here. And I went to Bishop Stang, and then I went to Providence College. And both my parents were always pretty political. I come from a family of Republicans. And in 1979, I went to Washington, D.C. to work for a summer. And I happened to have met some people that were working on the George H.W. Bush campaign. And I got very involved with that campaign in 1979 when I was still in college. And I would come up to Boston to help out on the campaign and take the bus up from Providence. And that campaign, of course, morphed into the Reagan-Bush campaign. Bush was chosen as the VP that year, and I graduated in 1980, so by that point in that fall time frame, I was working in the financial district and got very involved in that campaign. And it was great because I met a lot of young people through that campaign, being right down there in the financial district. So I've been at this for quite some time. 30 plus years. I'm now state committee woman for Norfolk, Bristol, Middlesex, and I was elected a year ago March in 2012, and I really feel that I've brought pretty much 30 years and perhaps 30 plus campaigns worth of experience
yes.
to
I want to go
the
back
state committee.
for a second to what you just talked about, the Reagan-Bush campaign years. That must have been a heady time.
It was fun.
Yes.
It was one of the most fun campaigns I had ever worked on.
Lots of energy, I would
Lots
guess.
of energy. And, you know, what was nice about that campaign, and maybe we all need to take a page out of the book from that campaign, was that Reagan and Bush were battling it out with one another. They had their each own campaigns. There were some nasty debates from time to time with one another, but then they unified. Mm-hmm. They unified.
Yes.
And look at what they did as a vice president and a presidential pick. And then Bush did go on in '88 to run on his own, and he won after having been vice president.
Yes.
Sadly, he didn't win a second time.
Right.
But, you know, Bush and Reagan didn't necessarily come from the same elements of the party. But they united,
Yes.
and they worked well together.
Yes.
And that's, you know, we're sort of at that fork in the road a little bit now in our party.
Yes. Mark Townsend, could you tell us a little bit about where you've come from and what got you involved in politics?
Sure. Well, I grew up in Ashland. I moved to the South Shore when I was a freshman in high school, and I also got very involved. My first campaign was the Reagan campaign. I did a lot of work up in New Hampshire for Reagan. And after that election, I really took a hiatus from politics. I went into business, first in retail, then I started an insurance agency that I still have, and you know, raised a family. And really what I did for a long time was coached a lot of baseball teams, and I got involved with all my kids' activities, in addition to working 60-hour weeks in my own business.
Yeah.
And you know, after my kids got a little bit older, say 2008, 2009, I got really involved with politics again. I had always been involved in local races, you know, in town races, that type of thing. But I hadn't been involved in really Republican Party politics per se. And I got really involved then, first with a lot of local campaigns, the Jeff Perry campaign,
Yes.
you know, things like that. So that really led me back into politics.
Back to your roots.
Back to my roots. And you know, I've always been, like I said, I've always been you know, involved, but not not so much out in front. And then, you know, my good friend Bill Nickerson, unfortunately, passed away some time ago. And when he did, I decided that I was going to try to run for his state committee seat. So I did that last year, and I was elected at a caucus in December of 2012.
So both of you are kind of peers, shall we say,
We're peers, and
Yes.
we're both, I guess, new to the state committee.
but not new to politics.
Not new to politics, no.
Thank heaven. That's great. Okay, now if you don't mind, I would like to ask you both kind of a personal question. Where were you on September 11th, 2001?
Yeah, that's good.
Well, I was swimming. I do that too. I'm a competitive swimmer still, and it's a love of my life to be out there swimming. And pool I was at the time had an outdoor pool, and I had just finished a wonderful workout on a beautiful, clear blue, perfect day. And I came upstairs after changing, and everybody upstairs, it was about 10 after 9 that morning, was screaming. And I was taken aback. I didn't know what was happening in the building itself. I thought some emergency was happening in the health club. And then I realized what was going on and went home and turned on the TV and was just dumbfounded for the next several hours. And my husband was working in downtown Boston at the time, and they shut down, you know, everything in the city, and he couldn't get a train home. They were all packed, so he and a couple of other guys, that after waiting 5 or 6 hours, hailed a cab, and we live out in Norfolk. And he found 2 other guys that were sort of going to Franklin, Norfolk, in that surrounding area. And I think he got home at 5 or 6 o'clock that night after paying like quite a bit of money to get this cab driver to take them all the way out to the suburbs.
Wow.
So it was a worrisome day about where he might be in the city.
Right.
But it was terrible to go home and watch. And I think I called my sister and just sat on the phone watching what was transpiring
In awe.
in awe
Yeah.
and sadness. Well, I watched the towers fall with my sister on the other line. I don't have children, so if my husband's not around, I'm pretty much in the house alone.
Right.
So
Right.
it was a very sad and traumatic day.
It was.
Mark, where were you?
Well, I was actually home. My wife had to work early that day, so I got the kids on the school bus, and I was actually just getting ready to go to the office when I saw the news was on, and I saw the first plane, or I heard the news report that the first plane had hit. So I sat down and watched that for a minute or two, and I had to go in. I had people coming into the office, so I hopped in the car
Just give me the word.
and drove in, and I heard the second plane hit. The news report, obviously. So.
So you were in the car listening to the radio.
Yeah, I was in the car listening to the radio, and at that point, I canceled a couple of appointments
Yeah.
and went home because I knew the kids would be upset, and I think for some reason they had a short day that day, so I wanted to make sure somebody was home.
Right.
I don't think anyone will ever forget where they were that day.
Right. Right. Well, on that somber note, we're just going to take a few minutes and maybe have silence for 10 seconds, at least 10 seconds.
Absolutely.
And then we'll go to a Pete on the Street segment.
Hi, this is Pete Mazzone. I'm here today for the Right Side TV to do our attempt at a small memorial to the victims of the 9/11 attacks at the World Trade Center, at the Pentagon, and that brave group of passengers that took control of the plane and crashed in the fields of Pennsylvania. But it comes home to Taunton because a local Taunton family lost one of their own, Peter A. Gay, the son of a local attorney, member of a very well-known family. And it brings it home to Taunton. And this is a memorial here at Memorial Park on 138, Somerset Avenue. But let's go to another memorial at Ground Zero. It was a normal morning for Peter A. Gay, an executive commuting back to California until Flight 11 crashed into the World Trade Center. Here he is, a portrait with his dad, Peter B. Gay. Here's Peter B. Gay, the local attorney. The family dedicated the monument at Memorial Park. Now here we are at Ground Zero. If you're planning on traveling to Ground Zero, I really strongly urge you to hire a tour guide. The one I used was a lady named Valerie Jagier, Gourmet Travel out of Rhode Island. That's my shameless plug of the week. She's always fun to travel with, does a great job. Here's some people leaving personal memorials at the memorial. A very moving experience. This one in particular, I don't know Jennifer L. Howley, but seeing her unborn child killed by the people who did the attack really bothered me. Here we are, we've found Peter A. Gay's name in the memorial. It's on the N2 slab of the memorial. And let's just sit back and reflect for a minute on what happened on that day on September 11th, 2001. Now, I'm sure everybody remembers where they were on 9/11/2001. I was one of the sales promotion guys at Reed & Barton Silversmiths. We were doing a major mailing to our hotel and food service division, and one of our accounts was Windows on the World, that beautiful restaurant atop the World Trade Center. I got a call from the director of the division. He said, "Save the postage, they're all dead." I'll never forget that call. Sherry.
Welcome back to the right side. And before we move on any further, we just wanted to mention that one of our sound people had lost an uncle. His name's Walter Sabina, our sound man, his name's Walter Sabina, lost an uncle in 9/11. And Walter, we're sorry for your loss and hope that that type of thing doesn't happen again. So, moving on, we do have a new face that happened to just materialize on our couch. I said I had a toothache, and he said he could help me. So here he is, political dentist of the hour. David Steinhof, fresh off a campaign, came within a hair's breadth of doing it in Fall River. Can you tell us about that?
That's just a few hundred votes in a district that is one of the most heavily Democrat-registered districts in the entire state of Massachusetts.
Yes.
We had help from not just Republicans, but Democrats, unenrolled or independents, as they like to be called, and that's what made the collaborative. People from all over the place, young, old, worked together to make this. Patty was one of our superstars. She was out there wrangling and calling people in, even though she's miles away from Fall River. She was out there pulling people in for this effort.
And David, if I were to guess, one of your best qualities is likability. That one of the reasons why it's easy for people to go ahead and check that box, even though there's an R there in Fall River, is because you are one of the most likable people running.
Well, I hope that grabs me a few votes, but I'll be honest with you. And I appreciate you saying that. I like you too, Sherry. But the truth is, what really worked for this was that the message we put out was the message that people all across Massachusetts are going to be talking about.
Yep.
We don't need the extra taxes right now. It's absolutely absurd. The legislature, the lopsided, Democrat-dominated legislature, passed that, and now even they are asking, why did we do it so quickly? And that's what the people
David,
of Mass
are you
took.
saying that people actually pay attention to policy when it hits their wallet?
You know, this vote actually, yeah, right? This vote, the turnout was about 25%. That actually is a little high for a special election on short notice in our area, because it's usually a foregone conclusion. The Democrat on the ticket takes it. Many times if there is another candidate running, it's an independent or somebody who has very low exposure. The fact that we brought it up a little bit was good, it's encouraging, but now I think when people are reading the paper this morning, they're going to say, gee, I wish I had gone down to vote. It would have made a difference this time.
Yeah,
And
when
I
it's that
think
close,
that's
you know it would have made a
A
difference.
little more than 300 votes.
Yes.
That
Right.
separated
And I
this
think people are
race.
going, I really
Yeah.
do. I think our biggest enemy collectively is voter apathy. And I think races like
Malaise.
this, where they're tight and people see that hundreds of votes, sometimes as little as 20 votes, can make the difference. They'll start to pay more attention. There are people upset about the taxes. We heard that everywhere when we knocked doors. Am I right?
Yes, yes.
Mark, you know what was
Absolutely.
very encouraging? I'm driving down Robeson last night. Last night, till the very end, people were down there working. Our parking lot was full. I beeped the horn. Mark was on Robeson, still putting door hangers on at 6 o'clock as we were running to the different precincts checking the count.
Yes.
Thank you
Around
again,
the
my
corner.
friend,
That's
for
right.
helping out with that. I really
you're welcome.
appreciate that.
Glad to do it.
On the
Thank
corner,
you.
on Locust.
That's right.
So let me ask you the big question that's on everyone's minds. Are you going to run again next year, or is it too early to tell? Is it kind of like it's like you just had that
Less than
baby
24 hours.
and, give it some time. You have to think about that.
You
Or
know,
do you
I-
know already?
I wouldn't say with absolute certainty that this is the office or that I will participate in this race again, but I'll tell you, it would be awfully nice just to consider this a longer campaign where an election got in the way. Okay, because we started only 6 to 7 weeks ago.
Right.
What we did in we'll say 7 weeks. What we did in 7 weeks, thanks to the volunteers we had and the grassroots effort with so little money, so little time, I think it rivals any campaign in this country.
Yeah.
The fact that we were able to climb up against somebody who was an expected front runner from the beginning, who even against her Democrat opponents. So, it's very encouraging. Would I love to consider that?
So
Yes.
next time it might be a grand slam and a landslide, right?
I don't think it'll ever be an overwhelming landslide. Not in my hometown, not right away. But the fact that we're edging up and opening people's minds and hearts is what matters.
Right,
And that's exactly what's happening.
right.
Matter of fact, people are even going to see this show down in my hometown. I know because some firefighters I spoke to the other day said they were watching it on local cable. We've been looping it
Fantastic.
down there as well.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
it's going to keep spreading.
Well, I know that I was impressed at the number of people who were trying to fit into your parking lot there, because we had trouble trying to fit in.
Right.
But it was impressive to see how many people were coming from all over the state to try
Wasn't
to
it
help
awesome?
out. Yeah.
And
Yes.
all over the state, and that began to grow, and then we began to get more people from right there in the local area that said, you know what, it's okay to help a Republican, even if they've got a D on their shirt, you know?
Yes, which goes right along with what Patty was saying, is that Patricia was saying, is that we need to know how to sort of close ranks, so to speak, when
Yes,
we're
I-
going on to the next level. We can
I
have
just-
our differences at times when we need to have our differences, but then once there is someone to support, everyone needs to close ranks and get on board.
I had referenced my first campaign, which was the Reagan-Bush campaign, and that I had started out helping George H.W. Bush, and then he was picked as the vice president, and he and Reagan got along phenomenally, that they just created that unified team, and they won.
That's
Right.
right.
So I was just saying, we are at one of those places in our political existence where we need to hearken back to that.
That's right.
The key to our
And work
Republican
together.
success is starting to breach some of the gaps in our own party.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's one of the things our
Absolutely.
campaign did an excellent job of. We had
It
people from
absolutely
MARA,
did.
the Mass Reagan Assembly. We had people who are the so-called establishment. And I think all of those names, all of those
Don't
ideas,
matter.
they just
Right.
fell by the wayside, and
That's
people
right.
worked together. It was incredible.
That is
Right.
right, and I think that's what we need to do as a party. We're going to have primaries, and people are going to differ on some issues. That happens, but when the primary's over and we elect a candidate to go forward, we all have to get behind that candidate, and
Right.
that's very important.
Right. Do we have another Pete on the Street segment? Okay. All right. But before we go to our next Pete on the Street segment, that is the next question I wanted to talk about, is where do you see our party trying to make a difference here in this state? Where do you think we should focus on? The gas tax? Think we should focus on